Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start. We got a few people in here, and hopefully we'll have some more join. Uh, um, so we're just going to go ahead and start. Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about self-worth and how we see ourselves and versus how God sees us. So, um, I started thinking about this throughout the week, and there's a verse that I've read so many times that I really just don't understand. And we're going to be reading in Psalms chapter 1. And I feel like I've read this chapter so many times because I have tried to read the whole book of Psalms, and I don't like poetry or reading, so I never get through it. So I just want to start on this first verse. And it says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful." Now, the word blessed here is actually, in Hebrew, is the word ashiri. I may not be pronouncing that right. But the reason I want to talk about what the actual word is because that word can be translated one of two ways. One way is blessed. The other way is happy. So if we reread this verse with the word happy and kind of put it in modern terms, it would be something like, happy are those who do not follow what other people tell them, or they don't follow the advice of others, or they're not trying to follow the crowd. They're trying to be different. So even though it may be popular to everyone else, we choose not to do it because it's not what's right. It's not just because everyone else does it is not why we do it. So it can also be, happy are those who don't find their worth by what the world tells them. So in order to be happy here, we have to understand that the world's going to tell you a bunch of things. Our world judges people based off of their body types, by their skin color, by every little tiny piece of your eye color, anything. People will judge you just to judge you. And if we try to fit the aspects of the world and we try to mold ourselves to the world, we're never going to be happy. If we're trying to lose that extra weight just so we can be a part of what the world does now and what they think is good looking or attractive or anything like that, we'll never be happy. You'll never lose enough weight, or you'll never be tall enough or short enough, or anything that the world tries to judge us by will never be enough. And so many of us go through that. So many of us decide that because we're not enough for the world, that means we're just not enough for ourselves. So the Bible tells us to be in the world but not of the world. And this verse kind of says the same thing. Is that the people who are happy and who can find true happiness are in this world, but they're not of this world. They're not trying to be everything the world tells them to be. They're not trying to fit the aspects of what everyone else expects from them. You know, they're not trying to fit in with everyone else. Just because you're in a crowd that does everything wrong does not mean that you have to do everything wrong. You can have friends and family who do wrong things, and it doesn't mean that they're not your friends and that they're not your family, but you don't have to do what they do. And when we chase these things, we will lose our happiness. So in this world where we get judged by our wealth, by the money we have, by the power our family has, by even some families where they're stuck up and they just are stuck in their ways. If you act any different from the way that they act, all of a sudden you're the bad guy. And I know there's plenty of us who can vouch for that when, maybe it's a family member or friends that you have that just, they're doing stuff that you know is wrong. They treat people wrongly, or they do things that just hurt other people, and maybe you don't do those things, or maybe vice versa. Um, if we learn to stop chasing everything else that we're seeing, we can learn to be happy. There's nothing, we're always going to want stuff. Everyone's going to want, me and Ashley want a new house, and we want a new car. And we're always going to want something new, even after we get those things. Maybe it won't be a house, maybe it won't be a car, but there's going to be something else that we're going to want. And if you desire and pursue what you want, it's a good thing, but over pursuing it to the point that you can't be happy until you acquire it is where the line has to be drawn. Because then we're walking in the counsel of the ungodly that says if you don't have it, you're not good enough. If you don't have it, you're falling short. So, what does God define our worth as? If what the world says that we're worth, based off of our skin color, body type, wealth, popularity, power, whatever it is that sticks out to you, talents, anything. It could literally be anything that makes you feel lesser than because you don't have all of it. So, how does God define us? And how does He see our worth? I'm going to give a few verses, and I'm going to try my best to recite them, but everyone just stick with me. So, I want to start with the most common one, so everyone can get their eye rolling over with, and just be a little cliche for a moment, even though I don't like being cliche. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So, God's worth for us is life for life. It means that He was willing to give up something that I don't think anyone who has a kid would be willing to give up, just because He loves us that much, and we're worth that much to Him. If you have parents that you feel unwanted and unloved by, or family members that just don't talk to you, even though you try to talk to them, you know what I'm talking about. You know that it's kind of hard to believe that a parent or somebody like that, or anyone, would be willing to give up their life for you, but God was so willing that He gave up His child's life for you. So, the next verse I want to read is Romans chapter 5. We're going to read a couple of verses. It's going to be verses 6 through 8. And I'm going to try to flip over to it as quickly as possible. Of course, I'm not a very good reader, so we'll see how quick that is. I just want to say hello to everyone who's watching. Thank you for tuning in. It will probably be a mess this week, so just warning everybody. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to doing this, and we're planning on doing it at least once a month, doing a live stream, and then sticking with our once a month meeting in Mount Hebron Church. So we're going to try this out for a little bit, and hopefully we can reach a lot of people, and those people will want to come to the meeting, and we can have a bigger group there as well. So Romans chapter 5 verse 6 says, for when we were still without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet perhaps for a good man someone would even dare to die. But God demonstrates His own love towards us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So I just kind of want to break that verse down just a little bit. Sorry, my face is itching. So what Paul's saying here is that for someone who is righteous, who does the right things, and who is a follower of God, many people Many people few people would try to die for that person. If it was their life versus the other person's life, they're not really going to try too hard to save them. They're not going to take the bullet for them. But for a good person, some may even dare to die. So really that verse it's kind of cliche, kind of just nothing really until you read the next verse where it says that God demonstrates his love because he sent his son to die for us while we were still sinners. So righteous is pretty good. To be called righteous in the Bible, it's not really that bad of a thing. It's a pretty good group to be in. But and to be good, obviously, everyone wants to be good. So you got righteous and you got good. And good's obviously above righteous. So Paul doesn't use either word to describe us. He uses sinner, which is below righteous, in my opinion, and below good. Not that a sinner can't do good things, but even while we ran away from God, even while we pursued other things and pursued worldly things, and we neglected God, God still died for us. While we just completely ignored him and did nothing for him, he gave it all for us. The only way I can think about this is, I don't know, maybe a firefighter, right? They go into a burning building to save lives of people they don't know. They don't learn their names. They don't know their names before they go in most of the time. They do what they do unselfishly to save a life, even if it means it costs their own. So that's what I would kind of compare it to. And the other verse I got here, I know we're flipping around a lot. I normally try not to do this, but I had to get some backup on this one. So we're going to be in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 4. And for everyone who's just tuning in, we're talking about self-worth. We're talking about how God sees us and versus how we see ourselves. It's so easy to look in the mirror at yourself and find every flaw. Whether that is a physical mirror or metaphorical mirror, either way, you can find things that you have regretted when you look in a metaphorical mirror. When you look back on your life, you can find things that you regret, and you can find things that just you really don't want to have to think about anymore because it's things that you've done wrong that you don't understand why anyone would forgive you for them. And then when you look in the physical mirror, maybe you don't like the way your body's shaped, or maybe you don't like how heavy you are, or the color of your eyes, color of your hair, or the shape of your face. It could be anything. Everyone's got their own little things. But I want to challenge us to look through God's eyes and then look at us the way that he sees us. It's not how God doesn't look at every downfall, he looks at every victory. And to look at that the same way that he does for us is to kind of find our happiness in ourselves. We can't show God's love and we can't be happy and shine the light that God needs us to shine if we're just not doing what he tells us to do. And we can't show other people how happy God makes us and how being Christian and being saved, how great it is if we're not happy with ourselves. Everyone can see when someone's not happy with themselves. You carry it on you. It's a constant state of maybe depression or sadness that you carry with you every single day. So we're in Isaiah chapter 43, and we're in verse 4. Since you were precious in my sight, you have been honored, and I have loved you. Therefore, I will give men for you and people for your life. So again, we're worth so much to God that he gives a life for us. He dies in the place of us. Where we deserved everything that Jesus had, Jesus died for us so that we wouldn't have to bear that. Even though the people he was dying for were the same ones who were killing him. Even though the people he was dying for were the same ones that were spitting on him and torturing him. The same ones that chose a thief over him. He was still dying for him. And even if it's just us, we're still worth it. And that's why I wanted to call this, Was I Worth It? Because I feel like when we struggle with our happiness and we struggle with seeing ourselves the way God sees us, we question if we were really worth it. Was Jesus' sacrifice worth it for us? If it was just you or if it was just me, would it still be worth it? Because I'm not right. I can't vouch for you, but I can tell you I screw up plenty of times. I mess up enough to know that if it was just based off me, I couldn't see how it would be worth it, but God says it is. So I want to keep going here. Jesus judges us based off of our spirits and based off of everything that he put into us. And most times we judge ourselves and others by what we see. We judge people almost immediately. We're so quick to just say something about someone that we don't even know. It could be the way someone's dressed walking down the street and you kind of just question why anyone would dress that way, or maybe you judge people by the color of their skin, and not like in the racist way. I think it's we're so surrounded by it that you see somebody who doesn't look like you and automatically you're assuming things, or maybe you're in a bad area of town and you already assume things. It's so premeditated that we judge so quickly everybody by what we see first. And we judge ourselves the same way. When we look into the mirror physically, like I was saying before, we almost instantly judge ourselves by what we see. If you're having a bad hair day, I'm kind of having a bad hair day. You look into the mirror, and that's the first thing you see, and it can ruin your day if you let it. Anything can ruin your day if you let it. Maybe you're feeling a little chubby today, and when you look in the mirror, your day gets a little bit worse. It goes a little bit downhill just because once you start looking in the mirror, that's what you saw. Did it freeze? No. It's frozen on mine here. Sorry about that. My live stream's frozen when I'm watching myself. So.
Wait. No, you're
done. Okay. So, the way we see ourselves and the way we see others will automatically judge our response to ourselves and our response to others. So, God judges us spiritually, and we can't sense everybody's spirit, so we don't know somebody's personality before you really get to know them. And we can judge by what we see and what we hear, how they talk to people. To be honest, we like to call our neighbors the hooligans because they are loud. They have cussing matches all the time. They fight out on the street. We live in a good neighborhood, I promise. But they break into cars. Yep, our car actually. But we judge them because of what we see, because of what we hear, because of our knowledge of what they've done, and we don't really get to know them. And that's kind of the same thing, we judge people so quickly. Whether you're at a grocery store and you hear someone like just screaming at somebody, that happens sometimes. When I worked at KFC in the drive-thru, I judged people very quickly. You know what kind of person you get when they pull up to the drive-thru, or if you're like me and you work in IT or anywhere where you have to deal with people on the phone, you know immediately whether they are a nice person or not, and if they're upset or not. For example, this weekend, the Friday really, I answered the phone for a guy, told him what my name was, and I just said, "Hey, this is Damien. Thank you for calling. How can I help?" And immediately he said, "Damien, I'm upset about this Wi-Fi now. What in the world? This thing ain't never worked for me before in my life." And you automatically know that he is upset and that he's going to be hard to talk to and hard to understand. And that's how we judge people. We judge people by our senses. So getting out of that is really hard. And one thing that I have to stop and think about sometimes, and I'm not perfect, I still judge people all the time. I'm gonna be honest. Just the other week, I just kept walking past the store because it was crowded, and there was people that I smelt some weed, and I was like, no, I don't need to go in that store. So, your judgment isn't always a bad thing, but it's definitely something that we have to be cautious of. And for me, I try to think about, what if I look at them like God looks at me, and not think, okay, well, this is maybe how they act and maybe how they talk or maybe how they look, but God still loves them the same way that He loves me, and I should treat them the same way. It's difficult and it's not always fun, and it's sometimes really hard to get out of that mindset, but when we do, it's definitely a big blessing. You never know what you're going to find out about somebody. Um, sometimes we have to be that person who never meets a stranger, and in today's world, that's really hard, especially for people like me. Ashley calls me an unfriendly introvert. I'm just rude to people, not intentionally, but I will tell people that I don't like them touching me. I don't do hugs. I'm not a fan of it, and I'll tell people that, and she's right. And I'm probably not the friendliest person if I was just going to go and talk to somebody, because I'm a little weird, a little awkward, and I don't know how to start conversations. So that's me. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. Maybe you're going to be the only light that person ever sees. I'm hitting them with a lot of cliches tonight, but maybe we are. Maybe we are the only thing that they're ever going to read, or the only Bible they're going to pick up. So let's shine our light. Now, I actually want to go ahead and read verses 2 and 3, because we know how they're happy. We don't know what makes them happy. What's the blessings in being happy. So this person that we talked about in Psalms 1:1, who is happy because they don't walk in the advice of the world, and they don't walk a part of the world. In verses 2 and 3, we're going to see what they do instead. So in verse 2, Psalms 1:2, sorry. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. I don't read aloud very well. If you did not know, I bring it up a lot because I'm not a strong reader. And for some reason, God has told me to speak to people out loud, even though I don't do that either. So, like I said, I'm not a very friendly person all the time, as Ashley would put it. But I want to talk about this person, this person who is happy and how they're happy. It says they delight in the law of the Lord, so they delight in their Bible. Let's just make it simple, and they meditate on it. I think the word meditate bothers people sometimes when they think, because most people think meditation is like, that's what them Indian people do. They cross their legs and they go om. But I think meditation in this aspect is actually just thinking about God's word. It's hard to do. It's hard to focus in on that, but the blessing of it is so much. When I shall tell you, whenever have to write out a lesson for whether this is Bible study or preaching on Sunday or covering my mom's Sunday school class or anything like that, I mainly don't really do it until I'm about to go to bed, because I go and lay down and then I read my Bible, and then I put my face in my hand and just think about it, for a few minutes, and then I tell Ashley, hey, I gotta go write some stuff down, and I write a lot. This, sorry, I'm not used to where this camera's at. That's my notebook that I use all the time. And even last night, I fell asleep watching TV and woke up, went and laid down to go to sleep, and read my Bible a little bit. And then I had to get up for another hour and go write the stuff down for today. So that's kind of how things work. It's the meditation of God's Word, and it can make you happier. It's just, even if it's just one verse that you think about throughout the day, sometimes it can change your whole mood. The other part of it is that it's like a tree that's planted by the water. Okay, so it's the rivers are running, the roots are strong, but the thing that it also says is it doesn't wither, and it also says that it bears fruit in its season. Now, a lot of people would get this confused as bearing fruit's a good thing. You know, the Bible uses that term a lot, but it says in its season. This doesn't mean it always bears fruit. It means that sometimes it has off days. Yeah, sometimes life isn't going great for the tree, but it's still planted, and it's still rooted, it's still getting fed, and it's not dying. It's just not bearing fruit. And we can do the same thing. Sometimes we get so caught up in the fact that we're stuck in the job that we don't like and that we want to leave, or we want a promotion and we can't get there yet, or maybe you're out looking for new friends, but the friends you have now are the ones that God needs you to be around, or maybe that person, I think everyone had this person probably in high school, or even maybe it's just every day. It's that person that's kind of annoying that you really don't want to talk to. That person who just like kind of plugs themselves into your group or anything really. And you don't want them to be there, but you have to kind of just sit there and deal with it. That person. So sometimes we're not bearing fruit yet, but it doesn't mean that we're not where we're supposed to be to bear it. And sometimes we're so looking to get out of the spot that we're in, but God still has us there to do a job. And the people who are happy are the ones who realize that and they wait it out. Even when it's hard, even when it sucks, they wait it out. Patience is a fruit of the Spirit. It is very important, and none of us have it. I think almost everyone is impatient today, and it makes sense. We live in a very fast-paced society. If someone can't fix something quick or can't do something quick, you don't want them to do it at all. So that's how we work nowadays. But patience is something that we have to sit through, and maybe the season that you're in, you're still there right now because you haven't borne your fruit yet. So this person also doesn't lose themselves trying to do what everyone else is doing. Kind of the same thing that we were talking about before. They don't follow the advice of the world. You know, the world tells you that you have to dress like this or look like this for you to be happy. They don't get stuck in that. You know, it's the person that when everyone else is jumping off the cliff, they're like, no, I'm gonna think about that a little bit longer before I do that. It's the person who's willing to go against the status quo, which is not always easy, but it's always rewarding. And it's about knowing, okay, well, my God's bigger than what society says is right, and I'm gonna stick to it, even if it's difficult, even if it makes life harder for me. And that's what this person does. If I had to think about it, I'm a sports head, so I'm sorry in advance. But if you think about a football team, okay, at Loris High School, we run the football a lot because we have a really good offense. We had a decent offensive line and really good running backs when I played. So we ran the football a lot. Now, if we decided that instead of running the football, where we have all of our talent at, that we just wanted to only throw the football, we wouldn't be that good. And why I'm saying this is, if you try to do something that God didn't make you to do, don't expect to succeed at it. If everyone else is doing it and they're doing it well, and for some reason it's not working out for you, maybe it's not meant for you. God builds every single one of us different. Every NFL team, every football team is different. And that's okay. They don't have to be the same. That's what makes sports great to me, is that every one of them excels at certain things. So, in the same aspect, every one of us excels at certain things. You know, I can't sing as well as Ashley can because she's amazing and I'm just not great.
Lies.
Okay. But you know, Ashley's really good at English and I'm really good at math. So it works out for us. We don't have to be the same. We don't both have to be good at one thing. Sorry, I'm getting messages. But we can all be different, and that's okay. The important is knowing that no matter what God tells you that you're good at or what your thing is, just know that you were worth it. God made you for a reason, and God made us and placed us where we are for a reason. No matter how bad life may seem, no matter how bad your childhood was, God put us where we are for a reason. We all have different stories, and other people share similar aspects of our stories. And that's what our testimony is supposed to be, is that we're supposed to go out and share God's word and bless people who share the same story as us. I haven't done drugs. I ain't gonna be able to help a drug addict. But someone might be able to. And where that person's struggling, they may be able to be that light. I think every one of us has things that we struggle with that's different that God can use to be a blessing. And when we truly find our worth in God, He can use us wherever He needs us. Like I said before, if we want to be happy and we don't know our worth in God, and we're only finding our worth by what the world shows us and what the world tells us, we won't know our true happiness. And that'll show on your face every single day. If you get up and you look in the mirror and you don't like the way that you look, and it makes you sad or upset or affects your mood, maybe not every day it ruins your day, but I bet you there's a good bit of days it does. I can vouch for that personally. So it's whatever it could be. You know, the way you view yourself can affect you just as much as being sick can, just as much as being, you know, sad can. All of it can affect you. And when we truly figure out what God sees us and what God says that we are, we can understand His blessings. But that was really all I had tonight. I expected this to be an hour, but it was much shorter.